2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to the first ever NESN soccer show. I'm Marc, that's Marcus. We're joined by David Amoyal today, and we're talking Champions League final. Juventus, Real Madrid in Cardiff, Wales. Pretty monumental matchup, as it is every year. But David, we'll start with you. What was your first reaction when you saw this matchup be finalized almost a month ago now? And what were you thinking when it first was official?
So I think these have been the two best teams in this edition of the Champions League. Juventus is now going to the final for the second time in 3 years. Real Madrid has a chance to win for the third time out of the past 4 years. I think they have been the best teams in the competition overall. I think it's a great matchup because Juventus has a really incredible defense, and they'll be facing Real Madrid, who of course has Cristiano Ronaldo, who's on fire, and a lot of exciting offensive weapons. So I think it's a great matchup in and of itself, and having the two best teams in the final isn't always the case. The Champions League can be a little bit of a crapshoot, but I think the two teams that deserve to be in Cardiff are actually going to be playing tomorrow.
Marcus?
Yeah, you know, for me, it was more of a history thing where you have Real Madrid and Juventus, the old lady of Italian soccer. Real Madrid, the winningest team. You know, these teams have been great for the last 4 or 5 years now. And I always say when you get to this point in the competition, there's no surprises, there's no mistakes. The road you have to navigate to the final is it's hard and it's windy. So these teams, they deserve to be there because they're good enough. And as David said, they're the two best in the world right now. And I'm really excited about the game, looking forward to it.
Yeah, you know, Juventus topped Barcelona, who had just come off their miracle comeback in the round of 16, and then took down Monaco, who had an incredible year. Kind of, I think, surprised a lot of people as far as just how they were really able to compete at a European level, and kind of had no trouble with either of those teams. And they seem like a team of destiny, something I know that you said.
Right.
So it's definitely exciting, and it's kind of this renaissance of Serie A to be back on the national or international stage. Juventus was here 2 years ago, but I think a lot of people really didn't expect them to win when they were in the Champions League final a couple of years ago. And now they're back, and I think a lot of people are a lot more confident in them. But what would a win mean for the Serie A to be back on top of Europe? You know, kind of some up and down stories with the Serie A in the past few years. So what does it mean for the Serie A to really pull out a win here, and how important is it for the league and not just Juventus?
I think it's more of a Juventus thing than a Serie A thing, because Juventus, they've won 6 Serie A titles in a row. They're so far ahead of every other team in that league. I see them as more in the same way Real Madrid is playing in a different stratosphere than the rest of La Liga. You have these big clubs, these super clubs, Bayern, Juventus, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and I see this as Juventus elevating into that stratosphere where the rest of the league, they know they have to catch Juventus if they want to. The rest of the Italian soccer, they know they have to catch Juventus if they want to ever break into these teams. You know, where none of the Premier League teams are even at that level right at this moment in time. So I don't think it says so much about Serie A as it stands, more about what Serie A needs to do in terms of facilities and administration and really ambition and money, of course.
Yeah, David, any thoughts on that with just what it means for the league as a whole when your top team from your league ends up winning the Champions League final?
You know, Serie A has this perception, I think there's a lot of reality to it, that it's become a one-club league where Juve, as you mentioned, won 6 in a row. This season, at least, the title wasn't decided until the last 3 weeks of the last 3 matches of the season, but usually Juve runs away with it. So it helps the perception of Serie A a little bit, but it really helps Juve should they win, because they've lost 4 Champions League finals in a row dating back to the 90s. A club that has dominated nationally, but I think they just haven't won enough in Europe for a club of their caliber. So I think for Juve, it's going to help them get rid of this image of being like the Buffalo Bills who make it to the Super Bowl only to lose. So I think more than for Serie A, it's going to be about Juve, because if they win, people are still going to say, you know what, Juve is just going to keep dominating the league. But for them, they're going to get the monkey off their back if they pull it off.
So, Marcus, when we met yesterday, we were talking about, how important this is to kind of get the monkey off their back, but where are these teams already? I mean, Juventus doesn't necessarily get the credit they deserve, but they're one of the top teams in the world. I think everybody knows that about Real Madrid, but just how good is Juventus, and how much are they really a threat, not just to Real Madrid, but as we saw, they knocked off Barcelona. If they went up against a Bayern Munich, they'd be right there with them. How good are they in a worldwide term?
You know, I look at this Champions League final coming into the game. Real Madrid is #1, Juventus is #2. Whoever wins the game, that could flip, or maybe it stays the same. But you don't reach this point by accident. You have to be really, really good, really consistent over the span of months in order to get to the Champions League final. This is the showcase game in club soccer worldwide. So it's really 1 and 2. Real Madrid will be there or thereabouts until Cristiano Ronaldo decides to go. Juventus has kind of clawed their way up. I just finished writing the preview about it, where they were relegated in 2006, in absolute scandal and disgrace. And this has really been a 10-year reclamation project of their reputation and their status in the game. You know, in 2006, between '96 and 2006, they were one of the great teams in the world, year in, year out, and they fell really far, really hard. And just reaching this point, you know, I know they were there in 2015, and that almost felt like not a fluke, but let's call it a fluke for our purposes. It felt like a fluke. This time, this is no fluke. This Juventus team is the real deal, and they've added Dani Alves, Mario Mandzukic, Sami Khedira, you know, 3 players that had, I think, a total of 5 Champions League winners' medals on their. They came to the club since then, and then you have a guy like Higuain who scores big goals all the time, except in the final. So should he score in the final, I'm actually really personally rooting for him, because you know, he's been the butt of everybody's jokes for, I don't know, 5 years now.
Well, you know, you got to step up in the biggest games, and that's true in any sport. But you were just talking about it, when they got relegated, it seems like soccer's, the popularity of the teams, you always hear about Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and Manchester United, and especially in the States, I mean, since we're here, you see people with those jerseys and rooting for those teams. David, I'll go to you on this. What could this win do for popularity of Juventus on a worldwide stage? And, like, does this bring them into a Bayern Munich level of how much people root for the team and cheer for it outside of just Italy and on a worldwide stage?
It's absolutely vital. To me, nowadays, clubs measure themselves in the Champions League, the top clubs. This is the competition, especially since Juve has dominated Serie A so much. So I think it's absolutely vital for them to raise their profile. And Juve, you know, has gone out of their way to try to have a more international dimension. You mentioned all the players that they signed who have Champions League wins under their belt. Juve is also launching a new logo that tries to be very modern and appealing to, you know, maybe outside Italy. So I think it's vital for them to make it happen in that sense. So this really is important for them, also because of their perception that they're chokers in the final. You mentioned Higuain. It would be a redemption for him personally to score the winner, but also for Juve to finally win it. They haven't won it in 20 years. For a club like them, it's been way too long.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about legacies. We're talking about Higuain trying to buck his trend. What would a win do for Cristiano Ronaldo? I mean, what else does this guy have to do to, I mean, he's already one of the greatest of all time. What could this do for his legacy? I mean, does it just make it that much greater, or is it a new level that we haven't even seen yet? what does a win do for him?
Well, how's this for legacy? We've been talking for 10 minutes, and we're only now getting to Ronaldo.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenon. People have been asking me all week, who's better, Ronaldo or Messi? And, you know, for me, it's co-number ones. Both of these players are once in a 50-year kind of player, and they both happen to be doing it at the same time in the same league. So for Ronaldo, this is just another shot across Messi's bow, in that it's an eternal duel between them. They go back and forth. I think this would be Ronaldo's 4th Champions League title, which is incredible. You know, if you win more than 2, that's amazing. So this would be his 4th, and you know, should Real Madrid win, of course, he's going to have a big role, whether he's scoring the big goals as he did last year in the final or a couple of years ago, or if he's just coaching his team like he did in the Euros in Portugal. All the cameras will be on him. This is his legacy. It's on the line. And
well, I think recently, at least, Ronaldo has kind of had the upper hand on Messi, just with the Euros and Messi missing a PK in the Copa America final, and a little bit more success internationally at the club level this year.
Right.
And Juventus took down Barcelona, and now if Real Madrid can take down Juventus, it's kind of like a little bit of we beat who you couldn't beat. David, if he wins, does Ronaldo just kind of take over the #1 spot over Messi, or is it still just 1-1 like Marcus says?
Well, analogy, to me, I can compare them to Chamberlain and Bill Russell. To me, Messi is more the Chamberlain, like amazing stats, probably the better player talent-wise and, you know, individual stats. But Ronaldo's more like Bill Russell, so the titles that he won. So I see the comparison there. I'm still going to pick Messi, but Ronaldo is just so clutch that if he wins this against Juve's great defense, it goes even more towards his Bill Russell legacy. And I really appreciated what you guys say. Like, we really should enjoy watching these players, not so much worry about ranking them, but just enjoy them, because players like these don't come around that often.
Yeah. And just one final point on that. If Real Madrid wins the Champions League this year, and if Portugal wins the Confederations Cup, give Ronaldo the Ballon d'Or FIFA Best Player award again.
Not really any argument there. Speaking of legacies, the guy that just seems to always be there won't go away, Gianluigi Buffon, still in net for Juventus. He looks as good as he ever has, but this is another guy. He's never won this big match. He's a World Cup winner, but not a Champions League winner. What would a win here do for him?
I'm all but abandoning my neutrality in this game, because part of the reason is I want Gigi Buffon to win a Champions League so badly. Best goalkeeper in the world between, let's say, 2003 and 2013. He's won everything there is to win. He's a World Cup winner. He's won many Serie A titles. He stayed with Juventus after they went down to Serie B. You know, I just think if there's a player who deserves to win this title, it's him. And as I wrote about in the preview, it's, you know, history just kind of swings and changes and runs in cycles. And he's been there throughout, Gigi Buffon. He's been there, you know, through the great rise and the fall in the Italian game. And, you know, if this Juventus team is marking an uptick in Italian soccer, who better than Gigi Buffon to actually go out there and lift this trophy?
Yeah. Dave, do you think there's any chance, I mean, he's up there in age, if he wins this game, do you think there's any chance he would walk away or kind of say, I've done everything I can in my career?
I think he's going to keep playing regardless. He really wants to play in the next World Cup. I think this would be his 5th one. He's going to be 40 next year. There's the other really famous Italian goalkeeper of my lifetime, Dino Zoff, won the World Cup in '82 at the age of 40 to send off for his career. Italy, you know, after some years where they weren't very good, actually have a lot of great talent. So I think Buffon, even if he wins the Champions League, is going to keep playing. For me, his legacy, if he wins the Champions League, it's just the cherry on top of the sundae. He's been incredible for such a long time. And I think karma-wise, he deserves it. You guys talked about Juve being relegated because of the betting scandal. Keep in mind, Buffon went down to Italy's second division with Juve right after winning the World Cup. So he could have gone to any club in the world. So imagine like Ortiz going to the Pawtucket Red Sox after winning the World Series because the Red Sox are relegated. It is not in baseball, but just think about that. So to me, he would deserve it for that. His career is amazing regardless, but the fact that he hasn't won it, he deserves it. So I'm going to put my neutrality aside too and say that I hope he pulls it off.
Well, I'm glad we're all on the same page.
It's a
here.
sentimental show now.
So we can talk about legacies all we want, but if we get into the tactics, Massimiliano Allegri, Zinedine Zidane, they are two of the top coaches in the world. I think a lot of people, I've seen some articles this week that Zidane is more than just the name he made as a player. He's a big-time coach, and he's going to be around a long time. Are we surprised at Zidane's ability to just sort of step in as a coach and be as great as he was as a player? And who has the advantage as a coach here? Marcus, I'll give it to you.
For your first question, yes, surprised, and no at the same time. When he won the Champions League last year, I wasn't surprised that Real Madrid won it once they got there. But the fact that Zidane was one of only, I think, 4 or 5 first-year coaches to win the Champions League or the European Cup dating back to the 50s, that said something.
Yeah,
and now he's taken this team to another level, a higher level, where they won La Liga and they're back in the Champions League final, and they're on the cusp of becoming the first team to ever defend their Champions League title. It's really almost as amazing as what he was doing as a player when he won the European Championship, won the World Cup followed by the European Championship. Nobody had ever seen that before. So Zidane, he's just he's blessed. First of all, when it comes to this game, the beautiful game, he lives a charmed soccer life.
Yeah.
But you know, he's worked at this, being a coach. He wasn't just anointed. He worked his way up through Madrid system. Had a couple roles. He was a sporting director for a minute. He was an assistant coach. Jose Mourinho almost tried to, it seemed like, push him out of the club, but he came back after Mourinho left. He was Carlo Ancelotti's assistant. So, you know, I read earlier today, he said football's his great passion, and he had spent 4 years preparing for this. So the tactics that he has shown, you know, they've switched from a 4-3-3 where they started, where now it's like a 4-4-2 diamond with Ronaldo playing as a striker. That's something Rafa Benitez had tried to do about 18 months ago, and he tried and crashed and burned.
Yeah.
Well, Zidane has figured out a way to make this happen. So I never thought he would come in and be a tactical mastermind. I thought he'd be more of a player. But one thing Ronaldo said was that he really treats all the players with respect. This is a FIFA World Player of the Year winner, is a World Cup winner, a Champions League winner. If anybody could be talking down to a group of players, it's him.
Well, that's what's so amazing about him is he does have that tactical talent, but it's so tough to find a coach with that kind of tactical ability who understands what someone like Cristiano Ronaldo goes through on a day-to-day basis. And they've got a lot of stars on that team.
Yeah, the egos in that dressing room.
That's what Zidane was less than a decade ago. So
yeah, it's
kind of incredible. Now on the other side, Allegri didn't take exactly the same path to becoming the coach of one of the best teams in the world. David, how did Allegri get to this point, and does he have any advantage over Zidane from a coach's standpoint?
Very quickly on Zidane, he was definitely in. He played for Juve for a few years, and being in Italy was definitely a huge influence. You guys mentioned Ancelotti worked with great managers in Italy. Allegri, you're right, completely different path. He was a player as well, nowhere near like Zidane. When he left Milan, when he was sacked, people thought he was a terrible manager. Juve took a huge gamble signing him when Antonio Conte, who's now at Chelsea and won the title, left abruptly. The reaction when Juve signed Allegri was horrendous. Nobody thought he'd do it, and he's put his stamp on this team completely. So I give him a lot of credit. I think he's tactically one of the best managers out there. His in-game adjustments are fantastic. He's very versatile. He moved away from Conte's formation that featured 3 center backs and now is playing all his strikers basically at the same time. Higuain, Dybala, Mandzukic, Cuadrado, they're all on the pitch. And Juve still manages to defend really well. So I'm going to give a good edge to Allegri as tactically wise, but I definitely agree that Zidane brings a lot of charisma. He's the rare top player that became a very good manager. And I think the fact that he was groomed in Italy as a manager might actually really help Real Madrid in this match.
David, quick question. What do Juventus fans love Allegri? He's won 3 Serie A titles, I think 3 consecutive doubles. And from what I've read, I get the sense he's not, they don't adore him in the same way they did with Conte, who was one of their former players.
It's a great question. I think that has really shifted, though, this year, because I think until the formation change, everyone felt this was still Conte's team with the system that he used, but Allegri has put his stamp on Juve. And I think what was really smart that Allegri did is the minute he arrived at Juve, he talked about doing well in the Champions League. And under Conte, Juve, it's a small sample size, just 2 years. They didn't do particularly well. So smart for him to try to say, we're going to do it in Europe. And he's brought them to 2 finals out of the past 3 years. Last year, they probably deserved to eliminate Bayern Munich, and then who knows what happens. So I think, though, this is the one year that Allegri has really endeared himself to Juve fans. When there were rumors that he could go to Arsenal to replace Wenger, Juve fans were very concerned. So everyone in Turin, Juve fans, had a big sigh of relief when Wenger signed that extension earlier this week.
Well, I think a win in this match, kind of eliminates any of those questions.
Yeah.
There's so many big players in this match. Gareth Bale, the match is in Cardiff. Gareth Bale is from Cardiff. That's just really cool for me. I think a lot of people share that opinion.
Yeah.
Does it help him at all? Is he gonna, have the game of his life? Is there anything that adds?
Gareth Bale has been he's in a race against time. He's been injured the last 6 weeks or so. He had ankle surgery back in November. He missed 3 months. This has been maybe the worst of Gareth Bale's 3 seasons at Real Madrid, and it could be his last, especially if a team like Manchester United or Chelsea comes dangling, 100 million euros or pounds Real Madrid's way. Madrid fans they seem to be kind of mixed on Bale, even though he's scored big goals in big games. But this has been his least productive season, and there's a good chance Isco is going to start ahead of him in the Champions League final. But he said he's been doing double sessions and doing everything he can to get fit for this game. I have a feeling if he gets a chance to play, if Real Madrid puts him in maybe for the last 30 minutes or even for something like extra time, he could have a big impact. But if he starts, I could see that going wrong, where maybe he pulls up lame after 20 minutes or he's out there for 60 minutes and doesn't do much. Yeah. The injury really puts a cloud over this story because, yeah, he's the hometown kid and there are big murals of his face in places where he used to play as a kid. But his physical condition and how well Real Madrid has been doing in his absence really goes against him. Maybe we might should be talking about Isco instead of Bale. He finally got his hands on a place in the starting lineup, and he's done really well to keep it so far.
David, are there any sort of keys to victory and key players that you're looking at in this match that you think are going to step up, if it is Gareth Bale or anybody else?
Well, I'm going to give you a Juve perspective. There's 2 players that I'm looking at. So Giorgio Chiellini, Juventus center back. He's an old school defender, very physical, very strong. He's had an excellent comeback season. I think you're going to see him following Chiellini around the pitch quite a bit, and I think that's the matchup that might ultimately decide the game. And the other guy is Dani Alves. Dani Alves has basically carried Juve in the Champions League against Monaco, absolutely devastating. He's a big game player. Like, he's got great track record in the Champions League. In Serie A, he really didn't do too much in the January window. There was even talk he might go to China. And since then, he's been incredible for Juve. So I'm looking at him. Interestingly, the last time Juve was in the final against Barcelona, when the game was tied, there could have almost been a penalty when Dani Alves with Pogba. It could have easily been a penalty for Juve, and then who knows what happens. But I think Dani Alves can more than make up for that tomorrow with a big assist to win the game. Hopefully to Higuain, so then his legacy gets taken care of too.
Well, I think we're a little short on time, but do we want to do predictions? I know, Marcus, you hate predictions.
I hate them.
David, how do you feel about predictions? Do you like predicting things?
I do. I hate making predictions, but I will. I'm rooting for Juve. I'd root for any Italian team in the final, but I still think Real Madrid has an edge because of their experience on the big stage. I could see Ronaldo scoring a late goal to win it. I hope to be wrong, but I'm going to say 2-1 Real Madrid with a late goal by Ronaldo.
I'm going to flip it. I think it's going to be 2-1 Juventus. I'm also going to go very specific on my prediction. I think Buffon will save a penalty.
Wow.
I think he'll save a penalty, and it'll be in the second half, and I think that will be what pushes Juventus to the title.
And then he'll grow wings and fly straight to heaven.
Probably. Or to the Vatican or wherever he's going to
go. I'm going to go with 1-0 Juventus.
All right.
As we say, defense wins championships. The Italians have mastered defense, and this is one of the best Italian teams we've seen in 20 years.
All right. Well, I like that we all at least want the Italian team to win. I'm very happy about that.
Sure.
We'll see how it plays out tomorrow, Saturday, 2:45 Eastern in the States, and we'll see how it all plays out. Thanks for joining us.
It was a real pleasure, guys. Thank you so much for having me.